Well, I'll tell you this. I have to bring race into it. And people, every time our people establish certain facts based on historical references, people always want to tell you, forget about it. So, I'm going to tell you why D-Wade's transgender son has everything to do with race, and as far as it being massively propagated throughout the media. All right? And here's where the race comes in. Let's say you have a white woman jogging in Central Park, and the narrative goes, a black man raped her. Let's say it actually happened. A black man raped a white woman while running in the park around 7, 8 in the evening. Other white women, when it comes time to run into a park that they are accustomed to running in, they bear the stigma of the most recent history, and therefore they're reluctant to run in the park again. In fact, if they are in the park around the same hours or later, and they see a man walking behind them, they have every right to be paranoid. If they saw a black man behind them, they would have every right to be even more paranoid. Because at that particular point, we understand the scenario based on a more recent history that a white woman got raped by a black man in the park. And so I wouldn't castigate a white woman for feeling a little insecure, knowing that the rapist is still out, and whether he gets caught or not, anyone would be reluctant. And so what that white woman would probably do is stop jogging in that park, or make sure she has someone to accompany her instead of running in the park by herself as a safety measure. But if she found herself in a similar instance, why would she not feel uncomfortable, be it white man or black man, especially black man, since a black man in this particular scenario would have been the rapist? Now you might be saying, what does this have to do with anything? Well, in this particular instance, we represent the white woman, metaphorically, who has been victimized. But in this particular instance, it wouldn't be the black man, it'd be the white man. When you go through slavery, when you study slavery, the slave master made us mother effers. We were forced to have sex with our mothers. The slave master made us have sex with our best friend's wife in front of him. The slave master was always into deviations when it comes to sex. But the slave master definitely forced one black man to sleep with another black man. This is a historical fact. Okay? And we obviously know that he wanted to demean those men. He wanted men to play the role of a female. And this was the way he employed effeminizing black men. He has several ways that he went through this. He undergone this type of experiment several different ways, but one of the ways was forcibly imposing one man on another, or he would kill the other black man if he didn't indulge in gay activity. Now, this is a historical fact. This is a historical fact. This is not an attack on gay people. This is a historical fact that the white man was forcing black men on each other for psychological purposes, to demean him and emasculate him, in a sense, to strip him of his masculinity, considering that these men were heterosexual men. He forced them to be gay. And we also understand that when he beat the black man in front of his woman, he was doing that for what purpose? To make sure that when that black woman has black sons, that they would be more passive, okay? That they would be more submissive, because he was always in fear of an insurrection or a rebellion. So he would make sure it was his point of interest to say, you know what? If any black man shows any sign of rebellion, give us the slightest intimation that he wants to lead an insurrection. Not only will we beat him or kill him, or beat him to the point he almost dies, we're gonna do it in front of his female counterpart. So psychologically, the next generation can be impacted, to which end, or to an extent, that they will always be reluctant to fight back or go to war, because that's how their mama would raise them. Now, what does this have to do with race and D-Wade? We are like the white woman that was jogging in the park. Because we know that the slave master suffered from an inferiority complex. He would kill us and still go out his way to cut off our penis. While we were alive, he would make us into eunuchs. And at times even double castrate us, take off the penis and our scrotum. We know he had a fixation with our penis. But let's go back again. He forcibly imposed black men on other black men sexually. So now, in this regard, when we look and we see this black man, D. Wade, getting all this nationwide support for acknowledging his son as his daughter, we can't help but to feel, is this white man playing the same game again? Because the stigma from the history that America bears makes many of us that are conscious of the social engineering, many of us that's conscious of history in general, we stop and race plays a role, because we're not going to forget what transpired for near 500 years. So when we see this mass propaganda and support for a young man, a young black man, to be considered a young black girl, many of us reflect on history and say, is this happening again? And we also know when it came to misinformation, the slave master would say, it'd be more becoming to get one of their own to disseminate misinformation. So even if it came to scriptures, he would chain the Bible to the church, because y'all Negroes ain't gonna really start attempting to read. But we're gonna get you to read certain passages like slave, obey your masters. We're gonna cut and edit, copy, paste, take books out. We're gonna do that. But what we really gonna do on top of it all, we're gonna make sure one of your own teaches you this misinformation. And we're gonna make sure it's the leader of your community, which in that particular case would be the pastor. This is during slavery times. The pastor can at least hold the Bible. We couldn't read no other book, no math, no science book, and we ain't even teach read anything. When we do show you what to read, you're going to commit to memory what we say to commit to memory, and it's going to come out of that Bible. Another conversation to be had on another day. But the reality is, they would appoint our leadership to misinform us. One of our own, because it would be more becoming if we were misinformed by our own, because then the defense mechanism would be down. You walking with me? Why is this important? Because D. Wade is not just anybody. He's arguably top 3 or at least top 5 shooting guards ever in NBA history. So he's a leader in as far as his ability to influence the masses. So they take one of our own to push an agenda that's reminiscent to that of something that transpired in slavery. And that's why race comes into it. Because we, in this particular instance, is like the white woman who's running in the park, and I, as the activist or the speaker, am that guy that's accompanying my people. And I have to remind them, hey, you know what happened in the past? This might be happening today. Say it might. I could be absolutely wrong. But black people have the right to fair skepticism when anything manifests that major white media has control of. When major white media controls the narrative, under whatever pretense, black people have the right to fair skepticism, to question the motives, objectives, and the agendas. Because for slavery to take place almost 500 years, and for it to be abrogated, and inside of 60, 70, for the most part, a technical freedom, can we be that sure that 500 years of behavior can really be revoked in less than a century? So I am the jogger accompanying the progeny of whom has been victimized. And it's always important to remember anybody that goes out their way to say, hey, stop making it about race. Hey, forget it. Yo, let's just move on. No, because the oppressors haven't moved on. Racial profiling is still taking place. There's still a mass prison incarceration of black men and black women, black people in general. So long as those things are clearly evident, we always have the right to fair skepticism. So that's why race matters. Because we have to question the motives and the agendas of the media when it comes to effeminizing a black man or supporting an agenda with all the things they could support politically that they have not in this capacity for black people's rights. Dwayne Wade is brave. Brave, they say. He's brave. For calling his son his daughter. Now, like I said, these two things may have absolutely nothing to do with each other. But I would beg to differ for reasons I explained and even more. So y'all could go on another page and tell somebody else forget about race. You go on a whole bunch of other pages and forget about race. When you come to my page, from time to time, based on how I feel and what I see, I'm going to inform the people who may not be considering it, and I'm going to remind the people who are already aware of it. And that's what we're going to do, to keep the information alive, because our youth is being failed because the elders stopped communicating to them conscious matters that pertain to their liberation. So you got black people walking around here thinking they're actually free. Now, I'm not saying pass the buck and blame the white man for everything. But goddamn it, we're going to acknowledge everything. That's what we're going to do. We're not taking that shit off the table until there's a popular consensus of black people saying, I think life is pretty good. It ain't going to be 100%, but until there's a consensus of majority rule in favor of black people saying, yo, I'm pretty content. Because you all going to have bigotry no matter what. You all going to have racism no matter what. But things are looking good, and things are not looking good. So I hate to be killjoy, but you take your ass somewhere else with that. It ain't got nothing to do with race. It always has something to do with race when it comes to men being promoted as women on a massive level. It always has something to do with race. Almost everything that takes place to our disadvantage as a community has something to do with race. If the men want to behave as women, then who's going to defend the black community? Because we understand it's popular to say, don't put the women out there in the forefront unless it's absolutely necessary. Men, you got to go out there and fight those wars. So what happened when the men are like in a state of a woman's mind, like, you don't put me out there? Then what we gonna do? If the men is like, yo, you don't put me out there, I'm a house husband. Ain't that what they gonna be on now? The men wanna be house husbands? You don't put me out there. What are we gonna do with that kind of scenario? Peace to the family, man.